All right, welcome back. We're going to do just kind of a raw reaction video. I was gone for a couple days, last religious holiday for probably the next 4 or 5 months. So I was not able to either watch the Cowboys game, which none of you really care about since you don't have any real interests, and also the Canadian election. So we will talk about the Canadian election. I'm not going to torture you with more of my football musings, even though we whooped the Eagles. In any case, this was, I guess, the real exhibition of the difference between populism and principle, any type of principle, as opposed to media compliant, saccharine politics, which is Cuckservatism. So I'll show you real quick, I guess the results. Not that this is the focus, but you can see that the Conservative Party under Andrew Scheer underperformed. They did win by about, looks like 240,000 votes, the popular vote in Canada, but it doesn't really make a difference, seeing as I guess Canada is governed by this parliamentary system. So really, it goes by first past the post, which is common in a couple British Commonwealth nations, and especially, of course, the UK. But so the UK, Canada, Australia, I think New Zealand still uses it. I'm not quite sure. They use first past the post. Technically, our system here is first past the post in the House of Representatives, and then it's slightly different in the Senate. So Justin Trudeau, thanks to the fact that in many of these provinces, the districts are situated such that the Liberals were able to pull off a victory, he remains Prime Minister and he will lead a minority government. Now, what that means is that you will see Justin Trudeau with a diminished amount of power, given the fact that he does not have the raw ability to whip the members of his party to pass bills. Okay, it's very simple. If you command a parliamentary majority and your party has a legislative agenda, you can try to push your laws across the threshold and have them enacted without the help of any other party. You don't need any coalition or anything of the kind. The way it is right now, he would need apparently the help of a couple other parties in order to pass anything. He would need either the help of the New Democratic Party, which also lost a lot of power. They're down to 24 seats, and you need 170 seats to get a majority. So he would need, even with them, he would get, I guess, he would need 100. No, he would be up there. So he needs their help in order to pass any law. Which I guess if you're a person who's on the left, you're fine with that. He could just have them perform whenever he needs it. So that could possibly skew it, so that Canada is passing a lot of really, really Fruit Loopy left-wing legislation right now that would make the past 4 years under Trudeau look mild by comparison, because the NDP is even more far to the left and even more for high taxation, more for climate change legislation, more for the identity politics, more for this ridiculous gender-bending legislation. The Green Party also won another seat. So it's not the greatest situation if you're a person who want to change, because Trudeau is basically shackled to the left, or if he doesn't want to go with the left, he would have to give in to the Québécois separatists. Okay, so we're going to do probably a stream sometime, either, I don't know if it's going to be tonight, but we'll see, with a couple Canadian people, maybe one Canadian person, depending on who's available. Of course, Adrian Lloyd has already talked. I've already reached out to him, and he's willing to come on. Another person from Canada might come on. So what's the main message here? You can see that the real heartland for the NDP seems to be in some of these areas like Western Canada and, of course, the territorial areas. This is Nunavut. This is Northern Manitoba, Northern Ontario, and then there's, of course, some urban ridings. They're called ridings in Canada. I'm not sure where that comes from. I'd be interested to know if you're a Canadian. It is really a disaster, if you think about it, to have a minority government because you have a lot of uncertainty. Now, the Conservatives are mainly confined to the prairie provinces. Those would be Manitoba. You see, most of Manitoba is in the Conservative camp. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and part of British Columbia. Those provinces, the fact that the Conservatives seem to be completely limited to over there, and then certainly parts of Lower Ontario and to a lesser extent Quebec, those show that Andrew Scheer is a failure as the leader of that party. And I'll explain why. He had this opportunity to, after 2015, take the Conservative Party to a more, a more organic level. Okay, I don't know if populism is the right word. He doesn't seem like a very populist individual, but you have to go to people and really connect with their roots and tell them to believe in a Canada that their forefathers really built and turned into an honorable heritage, if you do believe that. Now, obviously, if you're from one of these parties like the NDP and the Green Party, you're ashamed of being a Canadian, and therefore you're appealing to Canadians through their guilt over certain things that you believe Canada did in the past. Although, if you think about it, Canada, except for its treatment of some of the Indigenous peoples, it hasn't really done as much damage on the worldwide stage as some other countries, as some of the imperial powers. Right? Not like France or Britain or Russia or the USA or China or Canada is not a bad country. So therefore, why the hell are they apologizing to half the world? It really is ridiculous when you see people like Justin Trudeau going around the world pretending that Canada as a country is this horrible place, when in reality, I mean, Canada is not, it's not anything amazing, but we're not talking about a country that's creating, life-threatening technologies that are going to destroy the planet. There's no massive threat from biological weapons created in Canada to anybody else. So at least as far as I know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong if you're one of these Canadians that knows something dirty about the Canadian government, but maybe some sort of flesh-eating maple syrup. I have no clue what they would do, but we have to really start to address the problem with the, I guess, conservative movement, if it even exists in Canada. You see, I think that there is this obsession in some of these countries where progressivism and liberal progressivism have taken hold, where it is really hatred of majority races, okay? And I'm not going to turn this into some sort of identitarian thing, but it creates this backlash where you alienate people entirely from the political process. It happened in the past with French Canadians, but it also is now happening with other English-speaking Canadians, where they don't really have any connection to any of these parties because they're not speaking to any of their needs. They're basically they're portraying the white Canadian, the European Canadian, as some sort of evil colonizer, and therefore a significant part of the electorate is completely alienated. In some cases, they do turn towards, I guess, I don't want to get into specifics, but extremist ideologies. These types of things were happening more so in the 80s too, partly as a result of Trudeau's dad. Right. I think that the band Screwdriver, which was one of the main skinhead bands, was started in Metro Toronto, and they were, I'm talking about white power skinheads. I'm not talking about. Now I'm gonna get I'm not gonna get demonetized, but I'm gonna get what's it called? My views suppressed because I said that. But the the band Screwdriver with a K, Screwdriver with a K. If you look them up, they were active in Ontario, largely during the time of the Trudeau and other liberal prime ministers in the 80s. I think what was the guy's name? Turner, the guy that came after Trudeau. And this the multiculturalism of that era spawned a backlash. So that same type of thing is going to eventually cause, I guess, an even worse trend in Canada, in my opinion. I think that if you really want to ask me, I don't believe in any sort of racial politics. I think I largely stand on the side of libertarianism. The more that you try to blame some group of people for all the ills of society, the more you alienate them and you cause them to get into very, very desperate, desperate measures in order to protect their role in society, or to get out of the difficult straits that they're in. So if you look at the map again, let me pull this up. If you look at the eastern provinces, the maritime provinces, Trudeau was very solid here. Why? It doesn't make any sense. I would suggest this: the Conservative Party simply decide they have not focused enough on trying to appeal to the needs, not just the electorate, but to the actual needs of the electorate in those provinces. And therefore, Trudeau basically had a very easy walk to victory in those ridings, and he's going to remain prime minister for the foreseeable future. Now, a minority government can easily collapse. He's essentially a hostage of some of these other parties, either the Greens and the NDP or the Québécois, the Bloc Québécois. So that would be interesting if he said, you know what, screw this leftism. I think I'm going to approve a referendum so Quebec can leave Canada. That would be very funny, and it could possibly happen. But I'm not gonna put money on it. That's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on BitChute and on Minds.com. Also on Subscribestar if you want to donate. Those are at Chef Leopard, and on Gab at Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later.